WWE is one of the biggest companies and is worth around $6 billion. It has come to this place after a long and hard struggle, all the while making controversial decisions about its product and management. One reason WWE is valued so highly is because of its huge TV deals. WWE has big deals with FOX and NBC Universal, broadcasting on Fox Sports 1 and USA Network on a weekly basis. With both channels looking for live broadcasts, WWE fits them perfectly. WWE ratings, however, have been on a constant slide. With that, neither network has been getting as much as they wanted when they first signed WWE. Since ratings have dropped drastically for Raw and significantly for SmackDown, there have been long threats of consequences. This is Wrestling Up, and we're talking about what could happen if WWE lost its TV deals. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. WWE is already losing TV deals on the international market. During the time when the Wednesday Night Wars were heated between WWE and AEW, both companies were doing their best to gain the advantage. AEW was struggling to establish itself in the international market and landed a major blow to WWE during this time. Fans were hearing about the competition in North America, but many missed out on what was happening outside their country. Wrestling Observer Newsletter reported that Sky Sports Italy was no longer going to air WWE after 2 decades and instead picked up AEW. The reason was that the ratings for WWE were dropping and it cost a lot more to broadcast WWE than it did for AEW. WWE lost their contracts with Sky in Germany, Austria, and the UK for the same reason. Recently, WWE lost their TV deal with Japan. Dave Meltzer talked about these situations, saying that after December 27th, WWE would no longer be aired on J Sports, which was the channel where WWE was being televised for the last 3 years. There is no word on whether they are going to get another deal, but apparently WWE has been cutting down on the Japanese wrestling scene, and the WWE network no longer broadcast pay-per-views in Japanese. Given WWE was looking to expand in Japan and there was even talks about NXT Japan a couple years back, the change in focus is telling about the future. WWE's falling ratings is not only having an effect outside the US, they are in trouble when it comes to their ratings with USA Network and Fox. While 5 years ago USA Network had 3 million people tuning into WWE on a weekly basis for Raw, now it's 1.5 million. WWE also made headlines in 2018 given their historic deal with Fox Sports for SmackDown. While Fox expected something huge from WWE, what they have gotten instead is a consistent 2 million people tuning in. That's better than Raw, but given they're paying WWE over $1 billion over the next 5 years, they wanted a lot more. One reason WWE is making record profits is their relationship with Saudi Arabia, $1 billion deal with Fox, their almost equally massive deal with USA, and their $1 billion deal with Peacock for the next 5 years. But with lowering ratings, it's not likely that when it comes time to renew, USA and Fox will want to renew at the old rates. In fact, the next offer WWE gets might be so below what they want that they are no longer able to show record profits. In fact, if the decline continues, they might lose the contracts altogether and decide to go a different way to broadcast their deals. If WWE loses their TV deals with Fox and USA in the next 5 years, the future of wrestling is likely to change and would open up the market. If WWE lost their television deal, then immediately they are in trouble. The exposure they built over the many years they have been on television will help them remain relevant while they look for alternative deals, but the fall in their status will be devastating. Not only will stock prices fall, the price of the company as a whole will go down, making them vulnerable to competitors. Without WWE having a TV deal, AEW would be the ones in the US left with the best broadcasting deals. They would have an immense one for Dynamite with TBS as well as their other show Rampage. While WWE could start airing their shows on YouTube while waiting for a network to pick them up, those looking for television on a weekly basis would be tuning into AEW. They would then likely not return to WWE unless they absolutely hated the product on AEW. Given this condition, Tony Khan and others would be taking advantage of the fall as they would sign other stars that WWE would be forced to release. As a whole, it would be an enormous upheaval of the wrestling world, one that would not be easy to recover from for WWE. AEW would be the market leaders, and others like Impact would step up and become alternatives. This would probably give rise to more independent indie promotions who would take advantage of the sudden gap in the market. This could even give rise to the territorial system of old that Vince McMahon had abolished, with exceptions to companies like AEW and Impact. Dropping ratings before has never been a concern for investors and network executives. Knowing that Vince McMahon was in charge, they allowed WWE much more free reign than they would allow others. However, with fan criticism at an all-time high and with AEW there to compare with for the first time, networks have been looking at the dropping ratings with more concern, as Dave Meltzer pointed out. I think a lot of it has to do with AEW not dropping at the same level as WWE. All of a sudden, it's wait a minute, why would WWE be dropping so much more in ratings compared to AEW in the same period? I think that's when all of a sudden people started looking at it and saying that maybe the Vince McMahon thing is not really what it is, as far as that nobody else can do this, and he's the genius of wrestling. Meltzer also talked about WWE getting lower TV deals in 2024 once the current deals are done with, as a result of which there could be a lot more concern in WWE about costs. At the end of the day, it depends on the numbers. Their business numbers are great because of the television deal. Right now, this year and the next year, it's probably not going to be the case. I think what it is that people are kind of getting a little ahead of the story and going, when 2022 comes and these numbers aren't turned around, then it could mean a lower TV deal. The international markets have already shown that that's a possibility that never happened before, with WWE losing Sky deals. However, if the drop continues at the rate that it has, networks might finally lose faith in WWE altogether and decide to drop their product. This would have immediate and far-reaching consequences. WWE would be firing a lot of their staff, everyone who has anything to do with their broadcast. A lot of heads would roll in the back office and only the higher-ups in production would remain, as WWE would look to find a short-term solution. Also, without a TV show, WWE would drop the two brands unite Raw and SmackDown, as well as NXT stars, and have one brand. As a result, there would be a surplus of wrestlers, with most of the lower names being fired, along with top names who would want to go elsewhere. WWE would be taking the chance to cut their losses and minimize their expenditure in such a situation, which would mean bigger cuts than the last 2 years, something fans might not have thought was possible. All told, it would be a complete and utter disaster. For a long time, there has been a slow but steady shift from television to streaming services, which is referred to as cord cutting. WWE had the infrastructure of the WWE Network, but supporting that is really difficult, so they put it on Peacock instead in the US. The new CFO of WWE even talked about the number of streaming services out there. Everyone has a plus. There is Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus, but not everyone has branded content with a huge fan base like WWE. So we saw there was a huge demand for what we had to offer, and we could take that money and double down and do what we do best, which is content. WWE could well go to a streaming service permanently instead of their current TV network-oriented product. That would harm their reach a lot, decreasing it, but would also help to build a new customer base. Streaming is the future of entertainment and everyone is doing it. If WWE loses its TV deal and they can't find another willing to take them immediately, this would be the most sensible thing for them to do, as they would then have a platform they could advertise and build on, while they would get time to work on future deals. It would still lead to their market share going down, but that might just make the wrestling market more competitive and better off in the long run. AEW would be in with a better chance to take over if that can happen. And this was What If WWE Lost Its TV Deals. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.